first thing I'm going to cover is the stripper I used. This is the stripper that I used. Got it from Home Depot, and it's the strongest one I could find for the purpose that I was attempting. And basically I just get the stripper, I get a cup, cheap paintbrush, and get to work. So basically when I do the stripping, I don't wait the 15 minutes. It says I actually do it for only 5 to 7 minutes, and what you're going to notice is the paint's going to start wrinkling. Then you got to remember that because the paint is wrinkling, the stripper's on top of that paint. So the stripper is no longer contacting the substrate, the surface. So what I do is, after 5 to 7 minutes, I take the paintbrush, maybe with a little more stripper, and basically flatten out all of those wrinkles, and therefore adding more stripper and getting the stripper that's already on the surface back onto the panel so that you can get some more stripping action working for you. Sometimes the car may have more than one coat of paint. You know, these cars, they have some history and they could have been painted 2, 3, 4 times. So you want the stripper to constantly contact the surface. So that's just my method. Now when I'm using these little cups, I don't fill the cup all the way up to here, because you're going to be, you know, going back and forth, and with every time you put the paintbrush back into the cup, you're most likely adding some of the paint that you stripped back into that cup. So let's say you only use half of what you put in the cup. You don't want to take the rest and put it back in the can. So I always use a little bit so that I'm able to use up the amount that I put into the cup. And if I need more, I just pour more into the cup. And I do it little by little. Now, to clean the stripper off the panel, first I use plastic spatula. I don't use metal because I don't want to gouge the metal. And then after, you're left with residue. And that's when I use acetone. Now, for me, acetone rules. I love acetone. I think is the best as far as you know, type of thinners and things is concerned. It's pretty strong, and I just love using it. Some people say use lacquer thinner, blah blah blah. No, I don't like lacquer thinner. I think it sucks, and acetone is much better. So I take a rag, paper towels, and clean off that panel, therefore neutralizing the stripper residue and having a nice clean panel so that you can work on. Now, word of caution, don't let the stripper into any cracks or crevices. Let me give you an example. For example, here you don't want it to get in between there. You don't want the stripper to get in between any of these areas. Reason being that if you get stripper in those areas and you do not get it clean, and you go and you paint your car in the future, that stripper, there's a good chance that that stripper is going to react with your brand new paint and start lifting in the future. And you don't want that biting you in the butt later on. You want to make sure you don't get stripper in there. Now what I do to prevent stripper from getting in areas like that is I just use some green masking tape. Put the green masking tape and then use the stripper, and try not to get the stripper onto the green masking tape so that you further prevent it from getting into the cracks. And then when you're done, you clean the panel, lift off the masking tape, and obviously under the masking tape you'll see that there's some paint that you didn't get because you didn't use stripper to get the paint off. Acetone does a great job in removing that paint. Take some acetone, Scotch-Brite pad like this one, and what I do is I cut it into little pieces and take some acetone, dip it in there, and just start scrubbing away, and you'll get rid of the paint. Now, not all the time the stripper is going to get rid of all the paint and break it down to bare metal, as in the case of this hood. Now, here's my stock hood for the Nova, and though it got rid of some here, but it didn't get rid of any of the E-coat on the rest of the panel. So, there's two ways I tackle that. The first way would be I would take a mouse sander with some 80 grit paper, and I just basically sand down the panel. It's a long process when you're using a mouse sander. But the mouth sander is very cheap, effective, and I had it. So, and most people have something like this in their house. So just use, something like this to sand down the panel. The other way would be using your acetone and your Scotch-Brite pad to get rid of the e-coating. So that's just another method. And then another thing you can use is just sandpaper, just good old-fashioned sanding down, mechanical sanding, and that works as well. And I used 80 grit paper. This is the brand I used, and that's what I used to, you can sand down the e-coating with that. The other method I used was sandblasting, and I used a portable sandblaster. And the one I had has a reservoir, and you just basically fill the reservoir up with sand, and you hook it up to a compressor, and then just start sanding, shooting the sand onto the metal. Then there's the other type where it's just a gun with a hose, and you stick the hose in a bucket full of sand, and you can sandblast that way. Now when you're sandblasting, do take care of your lungs. You don't want silica dust entering into your lungs. So you want to get a mask, you want to cover your face. I used a shirt and I tied it around my face. And then you could use goggles or something like this. I used this mask when I was sandblasting, and then the sand would bounce off the plastic. So eventually this plastic will lose its visibility. But you can always sand this down and then repolish it and have a clear view again. So you want to protect yourself when you're doing the sandblasting, especially if you do it inside a garage like I did. That silica dust is very dangerous for your lungs. So those are the methods I use for stripping my car. As you can see, they were just basic stuff. Hopefully this does answer some of the questions I was getting in the comments on how did I strip the car. If you like the video, please like it. If you have any comments, go ahead and leave it. I will read the comments. And if you have any requests, go ahead and make them. I will do my best to make a video or answer any of the questions that I get. So as always, thank you for watching.